All right, so we've got another look that we call L3, and internally we call retroscope. This is actually the first sort of optical design that Ian showed me, and it was sort of my introduction to like, we have to do this as an adapter. We have to bring this look to like everybody. He was really excited about that. I was excited about it, and when we seeing it at first, it almost looks anamorphic. And how do you say this without saying it's an anamorphic lens? It's a field effect. What's really sort of mind-blowing about this is it really points to what the variable tuning technology can do, right? It's basically a zoom lens for aberrations, which again, another sort of another Ian Neal first, right? In terms of what the guy invents. So you've got a zoom lens for aberrations. So you've got sort of three challenges. You want to have it do something. So and what it does is it creates a ton of astigmatism. So it starts with subtle astigmatism and goes to sort of a much more extreme astigmatism, not unlike the type of astigmatism you see in an anamorphic lens. And again, our optical designer, Ian, knows his way around anamorphic lenses. So he really created that sort of anamorphic astigmatism look. He calls it, it's a depth of field effect. It's not just sort of a field curvature roll off where things are just going to get maybe mushing, maybe even a little boring. It's going to have a lot of interesting things happening at the edge, at the edge of the field. Having something that only changes in the field, number one, doesn't really have any effect in the center. So it's not like you put a ProMist filter in front of it and you just sort of put a veil across the thing, right? It's actually keeping that nice and focused on your subject, and having the whole thing stay in focus as you turn the knob. That's just sort of the magic of this VariTune technology. Yeah, L3, as with the other tuners, we've got the electronics, so you can control, from your RF or your Sony mirrorless camera, you're controlling aperture, you're controlling focus. Focus by wire works through it. You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about only shooting manual lenses. You can shoot manual lenses. You can shoot, you could shoot big EF cine lenses if you want. But again, this is almost like the pinnacle of the VariTune. I mean, we got multiple moving elements in here that are doing a couple of things. They're maintaining a look. They're keeping the center clean, and they're bringing in this anamorphic sort of astigmatism. We call this thing retroscope because of how we sort of affect the depth of field at the edges. So the real difference between L3 is I would say like L1 and L2, the Baltar and the K35, there's a lot happening at the center of the frame. There's a lot of glow. There's a lot of just sort of, there's a lot of that creaminess and sort of halation that people associate with vintage lenses. The L3 is primarily an off-axis effect, right? We're keeping the center pretty clean, so it's not really affecting things in the center. What it's doing is creating this astigmatism. And we think that the astigmatism at the edge of the field is really interesting for the way it's going to affect depth of focus of in plane, in focus objects, and out of focus objects, right? So it's just going to give character to things at the edges. And if you use it at S35, it's going to give you a decent amount of astigmatism. If you push it to full frame, it's going to give you a lot more. Astigmatism is an aberration that doesn't really clean up with stopping down the lens. So it's probably, in terms of effects, that will tolerate the slowest F number. I've had this thing on projection. I've taken it from T4 to T5.6, and I still see that astigmatism. So there's a chance to really still see these depth of field effects. Again, I think the main point of the astigmatism was to create something that had an anamorphic feel to it. And I know that's kind of a funny thing to say because anamorphic also has the elliptical bokeh and it has flares. We know all this. We've got an optical designer who's designed one or two anamorphic lenses in his day. But Ian particularly loves this effect because he was really able to create that anamorphic astigmatism. And whether you're using it as just a standard effect to make your depth of field more interesting, you could actually take L3 footage, flat lens footage, and crop it to 2.39 to 1. So now you've changed your aspect ratio, right, to 2.39 to 1. And you've given it some character. You've given it some of this anamorphic character at the edges. We think that's going to be a really good use case for this because that's our secret weapon. I mean, again, it's no secret that we have a Baker's Dozen Academy Award winner on staff who might know his way around a couple of anamorphic lenses. So when he says that this is the anamorphic astigmatism, I'm going to tend to believe him.